For this next box, number 2, what we're going to be looking at is some formulas that will be important. So the GDP deflator, remember this is when we're going to take nominal GDP divided by real GDP. That little R tells you it's real GDP, and then inflation has been accounted for. So what this does is let economists compare prices from one price level to the next and see what kind of economic productivity we really have. So remember, deflating is simply taking out the inflation. So we'll take our nominal GDP and divide it by the real GDP, and that will give us the percent, or basically the amount that GDP had been inflated with a change in prices. Okay? Anytime we want to find any type of growth rate, it's going to be new minus old divided by old. So you take nominal GDP for the most current year divided by the base year, or whatever year you're given in the problem, and do new minus old divided by old times 100, and that will give us a percentage of how much GDP has grown from one year to the next. Anytime you need to find consumer price index, take the current market basket, divide it by the base market basket. So that means the current year, say if it's 2022, then the base year is 2020, just do current divided by base, and that will give you consumer price index. If you're trying to solve for the inflation rate or the inflation growth rate, you're going to do, because inflation is actually what percent did it go up from one year to the next. So once again, take CPI if you're given that, like 125 and 120, whatever it is, of the current newest minus old or base. So once again, do new minus old divided by old times 100, and that'll give you the inflation rate for a given time period. Remember, inflation rate is from 1 year to the next, or over 5 years. Okay, that's a percentage. So right now, people are saying in our economy we have 6% inflation. And we as economists should know that means, since this point in time last year, inflation or prices have gone up 6%. So if you're asked to solve for labor force participation rate, remember our labor force participation rate is going to be all the unemployed plus employed people. That says unemployed. Sorry, my writing is really bad. So it's employed plus unemployed divided by the population. And that will tell us the percentage of people in our population that want to have jobs. Either they have jobs employed or they do not have jobs unemployed. Sorry, let me make that a little bit better. That's what that's supposed to say, is unemployed. Okay, to get the actual unemployment rate, just take the number of people who are unemployed and divide that by the labor force, not loanable funds. Remember, unemployed means you don't have a job and you are actively seeking employment. Not in the labor force does not mean you're unemployed. Okay, it means you don't want a job if you're not in the labor force. Some of our multipliers, remember, MPC plus MPS equals 1, or 100% of someone's income. So MPC, remember, is marginal propensity to consume. That is the likelihood and by how much of our paycheck that we actually consume. Marginal propensity to save is the likelihood and the amount that we would save. So say our MPC is, we spend 80% and we save 20%. That would equal 100% of our paycheck. Okay? Now, if we want to find out what investment or government spending would do in the economy if we were to add things to create a way to get out of recession. So we take 1 over MPS, and remember, if you don't have MPS, then you do 1 over 1 minus MPC. In the question, they're going to give you one of these two, and you'll have to be able to solve. So we want to know if there's a $500 billion recession or gap in GDP, that we would need to put in a certain amount based on these numbers for people to go out and spend, and it would multiply and spend and spend and spend till we have enough aggregate demand to make up that loss of GDP. Now, if we want to find out taxes, if we raise or lower taxes, how much impact that will have on GDP, we're going to take minus MPC divided by MPS, and that would be our tax multiplier. So remember to do positive or negative, whether or not the government raises taxes or lowers taxes would alter this. So this being a divisible number means that the tax multiplier is going to be weaker than the spending multiplier, because we just don't know if people get their taxes changed, are they going to change their spending habits? So anytime you see something about which tax multiplier or spending multiplier is more powerful, that would be the spending multiplier. If we're trying to attain a balanced budget, we need to do the tax multiplier plus the spending multiplier, and if those things equal out or not. And we know that if we have the same amount of spending as we do in taxes, that this will end up being, the tax multiplier would end up being smaller as far as the impact on GDP goes. Let me zoom out so you can take a look at that and pause and check yours.